It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports,
Sports don't stop, and neither do we. Welcome to 365 Sports, your home for real conversations, original shows, and coverage that lives where sports actually happen. Join David Smoke, Craig Smoke, and myself, Paul Catalina, for in-depth interviews and local stories to the moments national media misses. 365 Sports brings you the voices, debates, and perspectives fans care about every single day. Subscribe now on YouTube, search 365 Sports, and never miss a moment because sports aren't seasonal. They're 365.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
Just use AMP-Pace.
Pace.
With Ease US, make studio quality voiceovers for your videos online in over 149 languages and dialects, featuring 468 natural AI voices. Customize the volume, mood, and pauses to perfectly match your content. Plus, capture high quality videos with no watermark. Record your screen, webcam, and voice, and save them instantly to your computer. Never been easier to create professional grade videos and voiceovers. Try it today at easeus.com. That's EASEUS.com. Ease US. Since our founding, we've been revolutionizing hair removal with cutting-edge technology and a commitment to empowerment. The U-Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. Experience the future of hair removal today at ulike.com, because at Ulike, beauty is about looking and feeling good. That's ULIKE.com. Ulike.
Hey, it's Matt Mosley of The Matt Mosley Show. We want you to watch our show every day, 1 to 3 on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And you get to see big name guests like Gary Patterson, Art Briles, Scott Drew, Doug McNamee, major Cowboys insiders, ESPN legends like Sal Palantonio. When news breaks on Cowboys or Baylor or NFL, we want you to look here first. 1 to 3 weekdays, it's the Matt Mosley Show.
It is the Pete Sousa Show, and we are live in Waco, Texas, back in Central Texas. Been in Dallas for a good portion, I guess, the past like 2.5, 3 weeks. I got Garrett here on the Wheels of Steel. Finally, I got a real producer in the flesh, right? Forget about the slappy in Boston, Massachusetts. Cam Stewart and our guy who tangos with Mickey Mouse for the King of Orlando, Chris Visser, down there at UCF. We were just actually talking about, he's not at UCF, but I was just talking to John Morris about the voice of the Baylor Bears, who was in the studio before me, which, by the way, is a really cool feel. Like, you come in here and there's another professional radio guy who's been doing it for decades, who is the voice of the Baylor Bears, who rang in a national championship for this program, or for this this city, this town, this school just a few years ago. You feel a little prestige coming into the studio this morning. And by the way, before that title was won by Baylor, Jay Wright won 2 of 3 in the preceding 4 years. And we're going to talk to Coach Wright here coming up in a little bit. But yeah, cool to see J-Mo this morning. Really cool to be in this beautiful, beautiful facility here, 365 Sports. Thank you so much for making this happen. Of course, Socorro Family Ford, Crawford Austin Properties, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers. What is that? Is that oh yeah, Lake Waco. We got Lake Waco up on the screen. They must have paid some big money. Hey Cam, was there a did you get a message about that? I'm just curious about the Lake Waco thing being up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen.
No, I had it up there about 5 minutes after you mentioned that we didn't have anything last week. It's been up for a couple episodes.
Okay, we don't need to leave that up. We'll leave it today, right? I mean, did they pay?
Sure.
Well, the idea is like there's certain marketing packages. I know this from, you've been in the business for a while. But, there's certain marketing, like the marketing package that's getting you, Cam Stewart, out of his goddamn house for once with a crane out to a sports bar?
Yeah, that is what it's going to take.
You're doing a live remote, right?
Yeah, live remote.
In Boston, Massachusetts, outside of
Charlestown, Blackboard Bar and Grill.
That's amazing, dude. How's the snow, by the way?
There's a lot of it, Pete. There is a lot of it. We've got over 2 feet for the second time in a month. We are buried. It is kind of brutal, but it's over for now.
I'm curious because I think this is something we can get into all over the country right now. Grace, your fiance, like, how are you guys doing coexisting like that in that kind of climate?
I mean, we're fine.
Okay.
It's not that different. She works hybrid and I'm working from home. So we are home together a lot, kind of each in our own lane, doing our separate things.
Okay.
It's a good question for our guest later. I'm sure he's buried right now.
I'm sure Jay is absolutely buried. My mom's buried. My brother Mike is buried.
I'd like for half of that interview with one of your heroes, your sports heroes, to just be about the snow.
About the snow in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that it has the shelf life of like a week. I think that'd be pretty funny.
I'm so stoked to talk to Coach Wright. You and I were talking about it a little bit offline. Like, there's so much. In an interview like this, you can go in totally cold, right? Like you feel like you, as a fan, you wrote the book on this guy. And having been in his orbit and universe and, his relationship with my mom and a lot of people that I'm close with. And, he's been valuable to me as somebody who, as I've come up in this business, just talking to a little bit. And, it's going to be pretty awesome.
Of course.
So what is this?
There's some shade being thrown in the comment section here.
He's sucking Mike. Somebody's working from home today. You can tell the snow's getting to all of us a little bit. Yeah. Well, okay. So, but we're pumped for that. That's coming up probably like 9-10 minutes. Let's start with with Kansas and Houston last night. A lot's been made of Darren Peterson and his role to the point where I think the whole thing crested last week after the game that I called, Oklahoma State and Kansas. There was a lot of, hullabaloo about him asking out of the game. And, he left the game. He didn't come back. All the morning shows, right, are like ripping him. Like, who cares? But it's out there. The noise is out there. Everybody knew. We talked to Jimmer Fredette on this show last week, and I'd heard, who else did we ask? Somebody else about getting in front of this. And he did what people suggested. I mean, I know Darren Peterson doesn't watch this show and he didn't hear Jimmer Fredette say, hey, you should talk a little bit more, get out in front of it. And a guy like Jimmer, of course, said it in the nicest way possible. But, earlier this week, obviously he's made available to the media. And right away, he just takes a lot of the air out of that balloon just by being available and just by talking about it a little bit. And last night we saw even, he plays the whole game, right? And, or pretty much the whole game. I'm a little surprised to see, like, he played a whole game. And I don't think there's enough. I think Kansas deserves a lot of credit, and Bill Self in particular, for the coaching job that he's done this year, basically with 2 separate teams. And when you watch these guys play, they play a different way when Peterson is on the floor or they used to, right? They used to, when he was on the floor, go through him all the time. This is what I've noticed as a fan. Now, when he's on the floor, he's like just a part of the game plan, right? And so it's not this crazy contrast of black and white when he's in and out of the game. Now, part of that is probably related to, hey, the guy didn't play 11, 12 games, and the games he did play, a lot of them were fragmented. And so we talked yesterday with Matt Babcock, NBA scout for years and draft analyst. And he's been out to see Darren Peterson 5 times. Only one time did he actually play. And there's a lot of frustration with fans, with NBA personnel people, right, who are spending time and money to go there. And I think sometimes now with Darren Peterson and with Bill Self, it's like, okay, Darren Peterson said yesterday after the game, they made him available, which they have not been doing much of. I told you he had 22 points in the game last week, and we requested him post-game, and they were like, nah, he's not going to talk. And, I'm like, fine, I don't care. Whoever you bring over, we'll make it like a superstar interview. But it's a little frustrating because you don't get a real reason why. And now I think people are starting to understand him a little bit, just in the sliver of time that he's made himself available. So this is a guy who I think will be taken in the first or second pick in the draft. And the more and more he plays, I think the more and more he's going to increase his value down the stretch. Now, again, I think he deserves credit for actually playing, because I think a lot of guys would have shut it down. That's what his quote was yesterday. Well, I love basketball. It's my life. I've been doing this for years. If I didn't want to play, I wouldn't play. I agree with that. We talk Houston now, as Kansas seems to be in pretty good shape. But one thing I've enjoyed about Kansas, and one thing Bill Self has mentioned, is, hey, we don't want 1 to become 2. And they've done a pretty good job of that. 1 loss becoming 2, having something steamroll. With Houston, it's been the opposite recently, right? They've lost 3 straight for the first time since 2017. They have not lost 3 straight since joining the Big 12. And there's a concern around Houston last night as to, okay, well, is this a team now? They've lost 3 straight. And Fran Fraschilla said it last night. They don't have a Jawan Roberts where you can go inside for an automatic bucket. And that is something they were able to lean on in the biggest of moments last year. This year, the intention is to lean a little bit more on the guys on the perimeter, right? But the guys on the perimeter in the last 3 games have been so-so. And that's fine right now. But you can watch Emmanuel Sharp. You can watch Milos Uzan, who I love Milos Uzan. I love watching him play. I always go back to, my first or second year calling games. He was at Oklahoma as a freshman, and they were talking about him going in the first round in like March of his freshman year. He decides to stick it out, and then he transfers to Houston and then stays at Houston. Clearly, he wants the tough, hardcore coaching and the tough love and accountability that's brought forth by Kelvin Sampson. But he hasn't responded all the way yet. He's never been able to make a team his team. And late in games, you would hope that a guy like Milos Uzan could take over, that Emmanuel Sharp could take over. Last night's game was a perfect opportunity for guys like that to be like, this is my team. I'm going to show you guys that on the perimeter, we're coming to play, and that's how we're going to win games. Right, in transition and with great guard play. And we're still playing Houston tough. I mean, you watch these guys play, they still beat the crap out of you. And it's literally, I talked to a coach this year. Who the heck was it? It was a Big 12 coach who said, when Houston basically it was Bobby Hurley. And he said this to the media. I'm not breaking any news. They play, it's a whole different style of game. Houston comes into the game in a full sweat. They bust their ass all pregame. They're basically working themselves into a full lather. The game starts. You're playing against a bunch of junkyard dogs. Houston gets all the calls because they have earned the right to get all the calls. But for a coach and for an opponent, it's sort of startling that this team that plays with such physicality has earned the right to have referees give them a little bit more grace than maybe their opponent. And that's just the breaks of the game, man. If you become the hunted, right? And not the hunter. A lot of times the hunted are the ones that are getting the breaks, right? The superstars get the calls. So Houston still has that DNA, right? That grit. But at the same time, they don't have a bucket getter like Jawan Roberts inside. And you saw that last night. So what do? You rely on the three a little more. Well, they were 5 of 24 from beyond the arc. Like, that is troublesome for Houston. To become that reliant on the three-point shot and to lose that way is not typical for a Kelvin Sampson team. And that you talk about a lot of the best teams in college basketball, they don't rely, right, on the deep ball, right? Like they rely on, okay, we're going to drag you up and down the floor, or we're going to bust your ass. And, you know, it's going to be a difficult night for opponents. It's not like, hey, we need to hit a bunch of threes in order for us to win. So I think it's an opportunity really for Houston to kind of figure out what's wrong, what's ailing the team now. But losing 3 straight, you know, you kind of are like, hey, that's interesting. So we'll keep an eye on the Houston situation. I think Kansas is good to go. My only fear after watching all the Darren Peterson stuff is like, just please don't let this guy get hurt. Like, I don't want something to happen to him. And then people are like, well, see, like, you wanted him to play. I can just see like a terrible injury, and then Bill Self talking to the media, and like everybody's so sad. And then we live in a society, and I hate to feed into this, but like then the narrative switches. Like, oh, I can't believe they made him play, and I can't believe these guys have to go to college for 1 year. Like, there is a little bit of that is still a possibility, because it feels like he's ready to rock and roll down the stretch for the rest of the year. It feels like he's been challenged and he's met the challenge. We'll find out. We'll also find out about Baylor tonight. They got Arizona at home. That's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one for me because I'm old, and it starts at 8 o'clock local time. So I'm not looking forward to that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll take a quick break. We got Jay Wright coming up next. Cam, are you ready to facilitate a break right now? Give me a thumbs up.
I am ready to facilitate a break right now.
We are presented by Savatrix. We'll step aside, coming back with 2-time national champ Jay Wright. We're efforting him at least. And look, if something comes up and Jay Wright doesn't make it, then, you know, something came up. But we're going to take a break like we normally do, our natural break before our next guest. The Pete Sousa Show rolls on after this.
Hey, it's Zach Gelb. We're talking NFL and college football. Plus, we have some of the biggest interviews in sports media. You got to check out the Zach Gelb Show right here on 365 Sports, weekdays, 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 3 p.m. Central. And make sure you subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/@Zach Gelb Show.
Save big during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Drive a new Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $13,000 off, or choose 0% financing. Get a new Laramie Crew Cab 4-wheel drive with 3.9% financing for 72 months, plus $15,000 off MSRP. Explore in a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, starting at $31,990. Happening now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Hi, I'm Jo from Face Theory. You're going to want to have a specific goal for your skincare routine. What do you want to achieve? Active ingredients are really strong, and if you're using too many at once, your skin can get overwhelmed. Don't overspend on products. Choose products that have scientific research behind them. At Face Theory, if you're not happy with a product, just say so, just give us a shout and we'll give you your money back, no problem.
Streamline event and appointment booking with Amelia's sleek, modern, and fully customizable booking forms. Tailor the colors, fonts, and design to match your brand and seamlessly integrate with your WordPress website. Whether it's for events or appointments, Amelia makes booking simple, stylish, and perfectly aligned with your business. Enhance your booking experience today at WPAmelia.com. That's WPAMELIA.com. Amelia.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
If you want a Boston sports show that's going to insult you as a fan and only cares about getting back at their old hosts or who Bill Belichick is dating, then keep tuning your radio. But if you want a sports show that's wicked good, wicked smart, wicked passionate, then you need the Wicked Boston Show with me, Cam Stewart. It is the only Boston sports talk show that is by the fans and for the fans. One voice in this city where the only BS is Boston sports. The Wicked Boston Show.
BadCreditLoans.com is a pioneering service provider that has carved a reputation in the financial industry for its dedication to helping individuals with bad credit secure loans. By making timely repayments, borrowers can gradually repair their credit history, thereby increasing their chances of securing better loan terms in the future. BadCreditLoans.com serves as a beacon of hope for those with bad credit. Simple, fast, and reliable loan application process. And its commitment to responsible borrowing makes it a trusted partner in the journey towards financial stability.
Yo, I love it. Corey Dickman's here. Hey! Corey Dickman just walked into the palatial studios here over on Elm Street. We got Garrett on the wheels of steel. We got Cam Stewart working the phones, burning up the phone lines, trying to track down Jay Wright. In the meantime, we are presented by Slovakics. Thank you so much to Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, Socorro Family Ford, Lake Waco Golf Course. Look at that. Cam is he's such a soldier. I mentioned to him, what the hell is the Lake Waco Golf Course logo doing up on the screen? Like, is that a part of their deal? No, it's not. Well, then take it down. We love them. We're going to do the read, but for crying out loud, Cam. So by the way, Cam is on the phone right now. I think he's either talking to Visser or Jay Wright, but he's got hand motions going. The hand motions going say to me he's probably talking to Visser. But either way, I've got plenty to talk about. And one thing, and this is like a kind of a hot item, I have been every red-blooded American male that I have had a conversation with recently, this is very true. And I've asked them what you're watching on television. Industry is something that I constantly am hearing about, the show industry. So last night, Houston and Kansas is getting a little out of hand. Now, Industry is on HBO, and I have heard very good things. So, but I've heard it's extremely salacious, okay? So when you talk about a show like this, you kind of like, okay, I'm prepared for kind of anything to happen, right? I'm prepared for this to be, like I said, like salacious, maybe raunchy. Whoa. First, like 10 minutes, again, it's one of those shows. I'm alone in my place, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this show is too much for me. One of those shows where I almost wanted to walk out of my own home watching this. It got that awkward. So a little more on Industry in a moment. I see we got our guy, Jay Wright, Coach Jay Wright, joining us from. Okay, so my first question for you, Coach. You look great, right? And how are you doing? Oh, by the way, I can't hear you right now.
Yeah, you got your mic muted, Coach.
Coach, you got your mic muted. How about now? He's still muted. Hang on, you're muted right now. It could be on our end, so give me 1 second. Cam, you want to give him a call?
Yep, I was just going to say I'll pop him out, give him a call.
All right. Coach, we're working on this right now. We'll have you up in a moment. We've got a cast of thousands now. Okay, Coach, you good now?
You hear me?
Oh, I got you loud and clear, brother. Let's go. My first question is, how are you doing? Is it you and Patty alone in the snow, or are you in Florida right now? Tell me you're in Naples or someplace nice.
No, man, I'm on my way. I came back from Naples for the snowstorm, man. It's killing me.
So you came back to bat down the hatches and be there for everybody.
We had a big game Saturday against UConn, man. I come back for home games.
I saw you. So my buddy, Rollie Rogers, got inducted alongside you. So that, Tom Rogers, I saw you, Big Tom was there. Those guys are like really near and dear to my heart. And I didn't know Rory was getting inducted. And she's one of the best field hockey players in Big East history. That was pretty cool.
I love that family. I met them that night. I didn't know that you knew her.
Yeah.
One of the great names in sports, right? Rory Rogers, man. She could be good at anything.
Named after Rory Sparrow. I mean, it's legit.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dead serious. Yeah. Uh-huh.
She didn't tell me that. I love that family. Tough story about her mom, man.
Oh, it was the worst. I'm really close with Tom Jr. And, it was a rough couple years. And she had so much. She was so proud of the Villanova community, obviously tight with Father Rob, and so proud of everything you guys accomplished. So,
cool.
Yes, Randy Rogers lived a great life. She was amazing.
How's your mom doing?
She's doing good. She should be watching. I've had everybody from, Sal Palantonio to Rick Barry on, but she hadn't watched any of those. She's watching this morning. I can promise you that. But she's pumped.
That's my girl.
And it's so cool to have known you for this long, to have, just been around you. I had a game with Chris Spatola this weekend, and Spatola was mentioning how, guys come up to him, and even the time he coached at Duke, they remember him from camps almost more than anything. Guys will walk up to him in an airport. And when Lapis got the Manhattan job, you take over and you start running camps for Rollie. And to a man, me and my boys were like, this guy's impressive. We were like,
how old were you? How old were you, like in 88, 89, 90?
10, 11. So that was like prime time for me. Like when you guys beat Illinois in the second round and you went to Birmingham and then you lost to Oklahoma, you would have been in the Final Four. That was a year where I was like really a part of it because I was just old enough to really enjoy the ride,
That's amazing because that's the exact age I was in 71 when Howard Porter and those guys went to the championship game. That's when I became a huge Villanova fan. That's exact same age.
It is that time where you're so impressionable, which is why I almost remember you with the power of being the assistant coach running the camps just as much as the guy who won 2 out of 3 titles. It's titles in 2 out of 3 years. One Philly question before we start. As a guy, let's pretend you're Jay calling in WIP, Jay from Bryn Mawr. Is Jay like, what does he think about this AJ Brown news? Like, do you think the Eagles have got to keep him, or do you think life goes on without him?
Obviously, I'm really, really up in the air. I'm good friends with Nick and Howie, and I have not talked to them yet about the deep issues that have gone on there. Whether he's redeemable, I really don't know. I can honestly say to you as a fan, it's an issue that's got to be dealt with one way or the other. And like he's either got to buy in and get all in, or he's got to go.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if a new offensive coordinator can cure that. I would be, as a fan, I know too much to just say he's got to go.
I know, I don't want to put you on the spot. Yeah, as a fan, though, you got to love, right? Like what he brings, the excitement. But for me, it's frustrating to know that guys aren't all on the same page.
Yeah, and he's not wrong. They got to get him the football, and they've got to throw the ball more and more efficiently. But you just don't know on the inside why it's not happening, and that's why if I just looked at it from the outside and see, as a coach, his distraction, like he's got to go.
Yeah.
But in pro football, there's so much more to it. And knowing as much as I do, there is a lot more to it. If he's salvageable, you don't get rid of a talent that good. in pro sports if he's salvageable.
It's why these jobs are so hard. Like GM, coach, it's why these jobs are so hard. It really is. You manage games, personalities. Nobody knows better than you. And I want to go back to the beginning of your coaching career. I love when you obviously you play at Bucknell. You're an assistant coach at D3 in Rochester, and then you move up the ranks. You work for Eddie Burke for a year. I love the story. As someone like you, again, all the accolades, Hall of Fame. It could last forever. I could list them all. I love your story when it's you and I think it's one of your assistants, Tom Pecora, and you go to a home visit at Hofstra. And you leave. This is great. And you talk about being naive. You leave the visit. The mom says in the visit, hey, if you don't win, you're going to get fired. And you guys walk out and you say to Tom, can you believe she said that? And he's like, dude, we're going to get fired if we don't win. And I think that's a great window into your humility and how you stay rooted, because it's so much easier to relate to that, at least for most humans, than to, okay, here I am on the Mount Rushmore of college basketball coaches. Does that still ring true? Those moments still make you, one, kind of almost pinch yourself with everything you've accomplished and all you've contributed to basketball and the life, but also man, we all feel like we're not that far from that still even.
100%, Pete. I just spoke to all of the coaches in the Villanova athletic department. We did a seminar with Brett Ledbetter. Have you ever read any of his stuff?
I have not.
He's awesome. He works a lot with Oklahoma. Awesome dude, man. Great sports psychologist.
Is that the energy bus guy?
No. But he like that stuff.
Because I remember talking to Porter Moser 2 years ago. He was like, I had one of their games. He's like, Energy Bus. You got to read Energy Bus. Of course I did. But I remember, yeah.
That is great. Brett Ledbetter works more with, he interviews coaches, and he interviewed me one time when I was coaching USA basketball. And all the questions he asked me, I came back to my own staff thinking, I know the answers to these questions, but have I clearly defined these answers for my staff and my players? He helped me so much. But one of the things we got down to was that situation to share with all the coaches that, he's bringing me up there and, he talks about national championships, Hall of Fame, all this. And I wanted to make sure I shared with them that, hey, that's the end result, and that's just a couple days in your life when you get named, Hall of Fame, or you win a national championship. That's just a few days in your life. The majority of your life is a lot of days of self-doubt and of humility. And that was one of the stories that I actually chose to tell, because I was so into what we were doing, and I believed so much in what we were doing, and I was so into the process. I didn't even think about the fact that, I'm being evaluated on wins and losses here, man. I'm in the process. These people around me, they don't want to hear about process. They want results. And I could get fired, and it's always good to have people around you like Tom Pecora who keep you real. My wife's like that, keeps you real, because as coaches, we can just get into our own world and not be dealing with reality, which is good sometimes, but a lot of times, we need to be brought back to reality.
Yeah, and that reality has seen you since you've retired. I would imagine you're more secure than ever with your decision, at least for right now. And that's my assumption. You correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of stuff that was going on a little bit when you left that's going on a lot. And I'm sure the coaches miss you. I know you keep in touch with your coaches, but, when you're working at CBS, you go around, you go to the practices or shoot-arounds, and those guys not only want to talk to you, but they want to vent to you because you get it. You understand it. What are college basketball coaches saying to you now when they talk to you and they ask you for counsel? And the reason I ask is because a big club in your bag is, hey, let's build this program the right way. Build a family together. I'm here in Waco, Texas, Baylor, Arizona tonight. Scott Drew, pretty much the same way you did it. I mean, a little different, but you look at the religious schools and the character guys and also the high skill set. Can you build a program like you did at Villanova today, right now, in college basketball?
Great question. And obviously something I get to talk about a lot now in retirement. And just to clear things up, everyone's asking me this, like, oh, you're getting ready for March Madness. I actually just retired from CBS also. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing that this year. And Pete, you would understand more than anybody the reason. I loved doing the games for CBS. I love being in studio on weekends. But one of the reasons that I retired at Villanova, and you talk about a place like Baylor, is, because your mom's such a big part of it with the Augustinian culture at Villanova. I loved all the things about Villanova outside of basketball that I didn't get to experience as much when I was working. Like, we have a great team chaplain, Father Rob. He has mass on Tuesday afternoons. Everybody would go on Tuesday afternoon, go to his mass, and I'd be working, and they'd stop in my office afterwards. I'd like, damn, I forgot to go. I got so busy I didn't go. I wanted to be a part of the Villanova community. So as assistant to our president, Father Peter Donahue, I get to do all those things now, being at home games. I was doing CBS and I'm watching Villanova games. My whole everybody's there except me. And I'm thinking, this is what I retired for. I wanted to be a part of this community. So I am doing that now and not doing the CBS. But to go to your original question, when I was doing CBS, what I enjoyed the most was we would do Saturday games at noon with Raph, and usually Raph, Iron Eagle, or Brad Nessler, like legends. That was so much fun for me. We'd go in on Friday, we'd go watch practice, and the coaches would always call me before and say, hey, can you stay after practice? I want to talk to you. And it got to the point where, we would all go over in one car, and the producer and director would have to wait for him. This, doing it on for ESPN, they'd have to wait for me because I'd be hours with the coach. Finally, they said, we're sending you in your own separate car. We're all going in a different car. You're going to stay and talk to the coach. But as you said, all the coaches were saying to me, look, I got into this, to get guys education, to develop guys, to develop relationships with guys. That's what we can't do that with the transfer portal. It's the combination of the transfer portal and NIL. It's the combination. If you just had one, it would be much easier to deal with. It's almost impossible now with players being free agency every year. And to try to shorten this answer, I don't think you can do it at the way we did it at Villanova, the way Scott Drew has done it, the way Tom Izzo has done it. I don't think you can do that anymore. It's no one's fault unless something changes. This is purely professional sports now. This is professional football, professional basketball. That's what it is. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but you don't build a professional sports team the way you built college basketball teams, where you actually were in it together with the student athlete and his family to get an education, grow as a man, and learn to be prepared to go on as a professional athlete and as a professional business person. That was what you all agreed you were doing together. That's not the case now. Now it's how much money can I make while I'm in college? And there's nothing wrong with that because the opportunity's there for those guys. It's pro basketball now.
And I love when you talk about, that tell almost the 10-year anniversary of when that title was won against North Carolina. And your message to the guys, and it was always attitude, right? Attitude, like you control your attitude. And late in that game, you guys are getting ready for that final sequence, which turns into one of the most historic moments in college basketball history. But the guys are saying to each other, guys coming off the bench, saying to starters, attitude. And you're thinking to yourself in the purest of forms, even if we don't win this game, I've done my job almost. These guys are going to take this into life. It is so much different now with some of these coaches where you're just trying to keep your roster intact. It's really tough. Is that almost unrelatable for you now? I know your last year you were kind of like, okay, this is coming to an end, but you did so well. The ride kept going. But is it almost unrelatable now, some of the stuff you're seeing as far as how these teams are put together?
That's a good way to say it, Pete. It is almost unrelatable. It's, as I said, when I talk to coaches and athletic departments, if you're talking to coaches in the Olympic sports, I tell them you are really blessed. Like, don't look at this NIL and say, well, it doesn't affect us as much. We can't do this for athletes. I tell them, you guys are blessed. You can still exist where you can have relationships long-term. You can be mentors. You can be inspirational in helping students understand the value of an education. The beauty of college, what we had in college athletics and still have other than football and basketball, is a young person at 18 might come to your school to play basketball. They might have made their decision based on basketball. Their parents might have talked about academics, but they make it on basketball.
Yeah.
They're 17 years old when they make that decision. When they get there and they start to get to be 19, 20, they start to realize, well, like, there's a lot of other great I've played for 2 years in college basketball. I've played against a lot of great players. I might not be a pro. I might be, but I've also met a lot of really intelligent people here on campus, and I've opened my mind up to other aspects of my life, academically, business-wise. And you know what? This education really is important to me now at 20, 21. And then they get their degrees, and they go on to be educated, well-grounded young men and young women. That's a great opportunity. That does not exist right now in football and basketball. And it's not the player's fault. It is what the system is. I do think we're going to get to a point one day where there's going to be a level of maybe 100, 120 schools that are purely professional teams that are playing for their colleges, and they have a union and they have collective bargaining agreements. What I'm really interested in is maybe those 250 schools below that, if they could get back to truly being student athletes that enjoy the experience of going to school with their other fellow students, playing on a team that represents the university, play for the name on the front of their jersey, not the name on the back of their jersey, and see where that level of student athlete competition gets to.
Yeah, I look forward to a shift like that too, because you talk to these coaches and, like you used to and still do today as friends. And it's so cool for me to hear, the other day it's Andy Kennedy and Perry Clark, and I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to the two of them just have a venting session. More Andy because he's still coaching, and they could talk for 3 hours about, like, you're never going to believe what's happening here, and you get Perry's reaction. It's really cool to be a part of it, but it's eye-opening to what we were just talking about. Yeah. I want to go back to that. That was like the present day philosophical stuff. This is the stuff that I love, and I won't keep you for too much longer, but I got to get into Coach Mass and his impact on you. He had an impact on so many of us from 30,000 feet. Just in 85, winning that championship, as small as I was, it really taught me to believe in myself and that really anything was possible. With you coming to Villanova, where your wife went to school, and it's immediately that family, and you're just shown a different way of how to do this basketball thing, or at least a specific way under Coach Mass. What was that like for you to grow under him, and as a son or a little brother, and also, like, I know how prepared he would get for games, and I love when you talk about his preparation, because I think that's something that's a hidden gem in him. People look at him as like a caricature of a coach. He was a taskmaster getting ready. What did you pull from him as a guy, and also X's and O's wise as a coach? Like, he had a million defenses he ran. Like, what did you take from that?
Pete, he was such an incredible character, and I'm sure I was tainted coming under him, because even at that time, which was like the mid 80s, people in coaching would say to me, "Come on, man, this family thing, that can't be really for real." Like, it was for real. You were a part of his family. You went to his family's weddings. You went to his family's christenings. You went to holidays with him and his family. Your mom was a part of it. Your mom and dad were a part of it. The whole Villanova family, the priests, everybody, he made a part of the basketball family. And that's really what I learned from him. That I think one of the great benefits I had from coaching at Villanova all these years was that my children all grew up around the Villanova campus and this great Villanova family. And everything can't last forever. I'm not saying what's going on now is wrong. I think Kevin Willard's doing an amazing job in this new era, having the respect for Villanova's tradition and the Augustinian community at Villanova, and yet handling this professionalism of basketball. He's doing it. He's balancing it perfectly. But to talk about Coach Masson, his relentless preparation for a game was unmatched. You know, when I would talk to other coaches later in my career about how we did it, like we would have scouting reports that were literally 40 pages long, and he expected the players to know it, all the assistants to know it. When you were tasked with the scouting report for Syracuse, everybody took pride in it. I remember John Olive, our assistant, who I'm sure you remember, is a great high school coach in Torrey Pines, California now. You know, he would always have Syracuse, and the players knew that he knew Syracuse's offense maybe as well as Syracuse. When we'd win the game, the players would chant, "Oh, nose Q's, oh, nose Q's." And we all took pride in that. Like Coach Mass, I can't even say he taught us, because he just demanded it, that you just had to outwork people. You had to be more prepared. You had to know what they were doing as well as they did. And that was what was going to beat them. We were never going to beat them on pure talent, even though we had great players. But he kind of convinced us we weren't that talented. We got to be smarter, when really we were pretty talented, but we were also smarter and more prepared.
Yeah, and I think that had to bleed into some of his confidence, right? Like that tireless preparation. You take that with you.
Pete, it was amazing. And I was just talking to Dwayne McClain, Steve Pannone about this, and in a close game at the end of the game. And if you remember back then, we were going up against John Thompson, Jim Boeheim, Rick Pitino was at Providence, PJ Carlissimo, all these great coaches. But when we were in the huddle at the end of a game, he had this way. We just believed we had Coach Mass. We were going to win it. It was unbelievable. And in 85, I wasn't there. I came in 87, but I'm sure that was the exact feeling going into that game, because I had that feeling 88 when we went to the Final Eight. Like, I just thought, we're going to the Final Four again because we got Coach Mass. You just believed it. And you really believed it with 30 seconds to go in a timeout when he had the board. You're like, he's going to have something here that we're going to shut them down, or we're going to score. Incredible belief he instilled in all of us.
And his belief in you, I always thought your relationship was personified by the fact that you went to Vegas with him. And, the optics of that, even as a kid, I was like, well, that's a perfect marriage. But you just pictured, Daddy Mass going to Vegas. It's just going to work. He's got Jay with him. Jay's not Italian, but he is. It was just like it was perfect. You guys were going to take over in the desert. It was going to be like Casino. But it just didn't work out. And that's something that people really never talk about. What was, and I'm not looking for dirt on it, but what was that experience like, that few years out there? Because it was a struggle. I mean, you look down the road and UCLA is winning a national title or ramping up to, and you guys are in a street fight and in the aftermath of all kinds of, NCAA stuff, and you're trying to pick up the pieces. What was that like?
It was really, for me, a young assistant who loved Villanova. I had been there for 5 years as an assistant. I had worked at the camp for 3 years before that. People like you and your family, you were so close to everybody. You knew you were kind of crushing everybody's hearts. It was wild leaving it. How old were you that year when we left? It was 93.
Yeah, I guess I was 14.
Yeah, that was big to a lot of people.
Huge, dude. It was soul crushing.
And it was such a bizarre move, Villanova to UNLV. When Coach Mass told me, I was shocked, and I was I was a young assistant. If Coach told me we were going to China, I was going.
Yeah,
I was just so loyal and just believed in him so much. But it was incredible. Like when we got there, and we followed Jerry Tarkanian, and you got in there and you realized how they ran their program. It was genius how they ran their program, but it was the exact opposite of what we did at Villanova. It was I know I was naive. When you're at a place like Villanova, you look at UNLV and you realize, you think like, wow, if we were there, it'd be easy. They've got everything. But when you got there, you realize a lot of the things that Jerry Tarkanian and his staff did, whether you right or wrong, a lot of the things they did were because of the makeup of that university in that city. So they had problems at UNLV that we never encountered at Villanova. And they were easy for us at Villanova. And then there were things at UNLV that were right at your fingertips that you would never be able to have. I remember Charles Barkley, who was a very good friend of mine, but we were young and good friends back then, showing up to go to a fight, at the Mirage, and he's like, "Come on, let's go." And we're with Buffer and all those guys, and we're like, "Man, you could just go to this stuff, sit in the front row." Steve Wynn got us seats, and we're like, "Holy, like you never did this when we were going over." Yeah. It was wild. Michael Buffer, you're going out to dinner. You were the toast of the town, but Jerry Tarkanian's group handled that extremely well and concentrated on basketball, and we were trying to do that. We were like a more inclusive group. Coach Massimino included everybody. And there was so many differences that it was not a good fit. And Coach, when we got there after a couple of months, we kind of figured it out, but Coach had taken the job, and now we got to make this work. And I could write. We wrote a book after our first national championship called Attitude.
Yeah.
We never wrote a book on those 2 years in Las Vegas following Jerry Tarkanian. That would be a bestseller, trust me.
Oh, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm trying to pump you for stories. No, I can't even imagine.
You can't.
That was like,
I couldn't have found
yeah,
two more diverse philosophies. And it's truly why Robert Maxson, the president, it's truly why he brought Coach Massimino out there.
He wanted to restore some order.
And his idea was, we wanted to make this. It was when Steve Wynn was promoting in Las Vegas. This is a family town, and they built Circus, and MGM had the big theme park, and they were trying to make it a family town. And they felt by the university bringing in a coach like Coach Mass and having the players graduate, that would help. But once we got there, we were there a few months, and we realized, like, this is a professional team, man. This is not interesting. These guys graduating. We had J.R. Ryder when we first got there.
Yeah,
he was amazing, but they didn't care. They didn't care if he went to class or not. They wanted him to perform.
Yeah,
and Coach Mass was getting him to go to class, and he was doing it. But if he didn't go to class, he'd sit him out, and then the newspapers would kill Coach Mass for sitting out J.R. Ryder for not going to class. It was wild.
It's not too much different. TJ Otzelberger, who I'm sure you've talked to plenty, has told me, like 6 months after getting the job there, he was like, I just knew it wasn't right. And it's not a knock on anybody. It was just like, I was different than what was happening there. And it didn't work. And now you see his success. All right, a couple more for you. One more, just a personal thing. I'm always curious about this. Someone like you, who I know is such a high character guy, during your career, when everything's taken you everywhere else but home. And honestly, for me, as like a play-by-play schlep, I'm away from home right now. I'm not the head coach of a Villanova or a Power 4 school. And I still get it, from my fiance, like, hey, in a good way, but like, we'd like you around a little more. How do you find that balance when your wife and your kids are growing up and Patty's like, Jay, I really need you around for this? Because I've heard you say that happened. I'm not assuming that. How in the world does someone with your character navigate that situation?
Since I've retired, Pete, I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of athletic departments, a lot of coaches, a lot of business people, corporations. And when I get in a Q&A session from CEOs, from leaders of business, that is the one question that I get the most. And I wish I had a better answer for. It was always the most difficult aspect of my job, always, is trying to find enough time for my family. And I don't even use the word balance, because we would just be unrealistic thinking there's a balance. In the jobs we have, and you're in it, it's so it's so demanding of your time. Again, part of why I stopped doing the CBS, once you're in it and it's basketball season, you're all in. I was watching every game on phone with coaches, gone all weekend. You know what it is. You're living it. You have to have a special person, and I did in my wife, and I do in my wife, Patty, and your kids. And I think you've got to talk to them about it as much as you can. I remember after my kids were out of high school, being at Fleming's right here on Lancaster Avenue, and having a bottle of wine with them. They were all out of college and saying, like, was it really that hard, me not being around? They were like, yeah, it was really. I was like, I didn't think it was that bad on you guys. Like, they're like, hey, it's all we know, but it's hard. And you've got to have a special family that understands you're doing the best you can. And then you've got to be committed to doing the best you can and being present when you are there, which I did not do a good job of. I'm being honest, Pete. Even when I was there, I was on the phone, and you got to be present when you're there.
It's hard. I mean, you did a pretty good job. I know you were a softball coach. You were an assistant softball coach. Like, and a guy like, Danny Hurley makes you look great. You know what I mean? It was not taking out the trash. You're like, yeah, I took out the trash. Like, you are a little more relatable than something like that, because that's just like way right. But that's what works for him. Last thing, this is a statement. I always promised I'd share this with you, and I've forgotten the couple times we had a chance to chat. So in 2003, my dad and I went to the basketball banquet. Now, remember, this was after like a rough year, and we were in the Villanova room. Right now it's at, the goddamn stadium or like at Finneran, we were in the Villanova room. And I remember you said, hey, like, I'm looking around this room and I'm going to remember who was in here, because this is like, these are, this would be considered a leaner time. And it's been so cool to just see you stay true to that and to remember everybody. I mean, and it's in your nature, right? That's who you are. It's not like you go out of your way. I know you do, but it's sort of who you are. And it's just like to remember that moment and to see all the success and to be talking with you now. I was probably 20-something then. It's been a great ride, and the value you've brought to so many of us is just so amazing. Obviously, yeah, I've told you before, but thank you very much. You did an amazing job. We all appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. And because your mom is such a big part of our community here, and your whole family was. What a great community Villanova is. I feel blessed to be a part of it. But that is one of the things I talk to young coaches about that are early in their careers and they're building their program and they're losing. I say to them, this is the time where you show your leadership and your commitment when things are not going well. Stay positive, show people that they should have hope. And look who's around you and look who's with you now, and never forget. And you don't have to get retribution, or you don't have to get revenge against any of the people that are not with you. You don't have to get that. That's never a part of it. But you don't forget the people that are with you at this time, because when you get it going, there's going to be a lot of people around you, but you never forget where you came from and who supported you when you were starting and times were down. And it's really true. And your mom, your family were a big part of us in the beginning. And there's a lot of great people in Villanova that, stuck with us in the beginning. And they're all still a lot of my great friends to this day.
Yeah, Coach, you're the best. And Craig Miller was such a mentor of mine. Yeah. It's a real deal. It was something in the water there, and with Coach Mass and everybody, Sean Ford, great stuff. So, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I am beyond appreciative. It's great to chat with you.
We're proud of you, Pete. Keep up the great work, man.
You got it. Thanks, Coach.
Hey, buddy.
Jay Wright, there you go. 2 titles in 3 years, and one of the best guys you'll ever meet. Cam, how cool is that guy? Come on.
You want me to put into words how cool that was? Seriously?
Yeah. I mean, he was
awesome. And I knew about your familial connections there, but one of the first things out of his mouth was, "How's your mom doing?"
I mean, and that's
my girl.
Real.
Like, that's legit.
Right. When I didn't want to tell this when he was here, because it wouldn't, I don't want to do that.
Well, he's gone.
Yeah.
I can tell he's not backstage anymore. So
like 4 or 5 years ago, when I'm really trying to get this thing going at ESPN, I was like, I had done a football game or two, like for ESPN. And I, at that point in time, you want it so bad. You're like, well, let's break out, all the heavy artillery.
Yeah.
And Jay had just retired, and he's looking around and he's thinking about what network he's going to work with. And I'm like, hey, Mom, and I never do this, and she doesn't do this. We just don't ask. We're pretty good with this stuff. Like, Mom, if you ever bump into him, could you just see if he could call? I'm like, I got the name, I got the guy. I'll write the email. If he could just check in with that guy. So of course, 48 hours later, my mom's like, I saw him. She's like, guess who I talked to? Typical mom. She's like, guess who I talked to? Jay Wright. And she's like, and I asked him if he could send a note on your behalf. And, he said to my mom, and this is mad props to my mom. He said to my mom, I've known you for 40 years. You've not asked me for one thing. So okay. But it just so happened that at this point in time, I'm asking him to call the boss at ESPN, and he's about to ink a deal with CBS and leave ESPN at the altar. So I'm at KWTX one day, and my phone.
The ESPN of Waco, by the way.
The ESPN of Waco. I'm doing something, and I pick up my phone, and I missed 3 calls from Jay Wright. I'm like, what? I'm like, out 3 calls. 3.
By the way, this does make me feel better about leaving a voicemail and a text seconds before he came on the show. That makes me feel better. Okay.
And he's like, hey, give me a call. And I call him, and he explains the situation. He's like, look, if for me to call this guy right now and champion for you, and then I'm about to take this job at CBS. He's like, nobody knows. He's like, I was like, Coach, say no more. Please don't worry about it. He's like, well, how about that? He's trying to figure out ways he can help. He's like, let's do this. Let's say, and we're game planning. He's like, let's just say when you talk to him, you can mention me. And, if he wants to give me a call, he's got to call me about you. And then I'm like, Coach, no problem. And it didn't even get to that because I'm good.
Yep. Speaks for itself.
But yeah, he's the best. And it's really cool. Really neat to talk to him about that. You can tell he's a Philly guy. And this is it right here. Kevin Fisher says it, the people's coach. He really is.
Yeah, man. And I hate to link this to another coach, but I heard this with Krzyzewski for years of there's no way that he's this classy, that he's this clean, that he's this, that, because people would say if you're that big a coach in college basketball, there's no way. And I'm like, Jay Wright is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Right. No pun intended, but Jay Wright, Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim, there are these guys, and Jay is right at the forefront of that.
And you compare, dude, that story he told, and that's why I'm happy, you and I talked about it. You could go in cold to talk to Coach K, right? And you'd have all the questions and you could talk for an hour. But listening, come on in, Kendall, listening overnight into today, just some recent stuff, I heard that story about the Hofstra visit, and that's amazing because that, to me, speaks to just a regular guy. You're still thinking about, I'm coaching to keep my job. You're not leaning in, and that's how normal people comport themselves, whatever you do, right? Cam's still worried about, I got to get a Locked On Baylor that's going to be solid tonight and get a lot of views. Not the fact that he's doing live remotes in Beantown, one of the 5 biggest sports cities in the world, on Thursday night. You're not toasting the success. You're fearing the failure.
Right.
Right.
It's a good point. It's perspective. And man.
Right. All right.
Would I do anything for that Vegas book, by the way?
Oh my God, dude. That's a question I've wanted to ask him forever.
And Jay Wright in Vegas.
You see the laugh I got out of him when I compared it to Casino? That was
great. That was great.
I mean, and the story, I'll tell you the last story about Coach Wright. He, Massimino really did have it was like a mafia. Everybody on his staff was Italian. Pannone, Lapis, John Olive, all those guys were Italian. Oh, thanks, Mom. All those guys were Italian.
No martinis, but close enough.
Yeah, there you go. That's Terry Martini. She's Italian, my mom. But one day, Jay Wright pulls Coach Mass aside. He's been working for 6 months. He's like, Coach, just so you know, I'm not Italian. And Massimino's like, what do you mean you're not Italian? He's like, I'm not Italian. He's like, I thought you were Italian. What do you, because he certainly looks Italian. He's like, yeah, I'm not. Why didn't you tell me? Well, I figured it might hurt my chances and you thought I was. And he's like, don't ever tell anybody that ever. Not Italian. Yeah. And then he said that his kids, one of them did like a search or one of those 23andMe's, and it turns out he is like 10% Italian. So it's all good.
Bang. That works.
All right,
Wait. Can I just real quick? Yeah. I know this is not the ultimate illustration of Italian American life, but like Tom Hagen was pretty respected. All right. Jay Wright at that time, a bit like a consigliere. You know?
Very much so. Especially like the move when they went to Vegas. In my memory, there was another assistant, I think Brett Gunning, that went with them. And again, I could have talked to him forever about this. I feel like he was one of the only guys to go with him. Like, and that was Rollie's, like, that was his consigliere.
His consigliere, man.
Yeah.
I come from like a lot of my step family side is Italian. So like blood, I'm pretty Irish, but acting, I'm pretty Italian. They are definitely one of those families that's like, we don't watch that movie.
Okay. We don't really?
So I have to put it out there. Like, I know that's not every Italian because they're like, oh, it gives us such a bad name.
Well, what are you going to do? I think that's a little highbrow of your.
It is, Pete. It is.
What else is going on? Anything else going on with you?
No. You got, for the Wicked Boston show, we've got stock up, stock down for the NHL players from the Winter Olympics, if you're into that kind of thing.
One question for you about the Olympics and hockey.
Sure.
We went through this last year.
Love it, man. Yeah.
We went through this last year with all the hullabaloo around the what was that called? The Four Nations. The Four Nations, right? Like, have you felt like there's been a sustained momentum for the sport of hockey? Because the past 2 years, you look at this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're bookended by amazing events.
Yeah.
So do you think the sport's moving in the right direction?
Yes, for sure. But
Garrett's over there nodding his head.
I think where the sport kind of lost out last year, which is not their fault, is I compared the momentum after the Four Nations last year versus in 2010 when the U.S. won the silver medal and lost to Canada in overtime in Canada. It was a big deal. That year in 2010, you had a Stanley Cup final of Philadelphia and Chicago. Right? Two of the great sports cities in America, two legit places that are like hockey towns, not number one sport, but really care about hockey. And they both hadn't won in a long time. And you had Boston in that mix. You had Detroit in that mix in the playoffs. And like last year, you didn't have any of those, man. Yeah. Last year, you didn't have any of the major American markets. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit. Literally none of them were in the playoffs. And so it was like a tough kind of sell to make your strong market stronger. You know what I mean? Because I think that is what you need to keep the momentum going. Yeah. So we'll see. The Flyers aren't making the playoffs this year, Pete. I hate to break it to you.
I know but that pisses me off because I like Rick Tocchet so much.
I like Talk, man. This is year one. I mean, he's got a whole thing. I mean, you think the AJ Brown thing is weird. Matvei Michkov, man. That's
really? Is there something going on with those guys?
Yeah, there's some drama. Tocchet doesn't think he's in shape. And Tocchet's a hard ass in a good way, man. Like he'll have that team ready to go. How about Jay with the AJ Brown question? I think that was just the case of like he wanted to know the situation, right? Like I don't think he was really walking on eggshells, but I was thinking like I could see the wheels turning. I'm like, this guy wants to know the whole situation to tell you how he would deal with it.
And he knows enough of it, but he doesn't know enough to give a real
yeah.
Totally. All right. Guess the line tonight for Baylor, Arizona.
I'll go. Oh, geez. Even in Waco, I'll bet it's Arizona -6.5.
-8.5.
Yeah. I was afraid to go higher, but that is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Alcoa. Yeah.
Will you do Locked On Baylor right after?
Maybe. Like if they get blown out, no, because like they're kind of supposed to. This Arizona team, I was talking about this on my show today. Like this is as good a Big 12 team, as good as I've seen since 2021 Baylor. Like I'd put those Houston teams the last 2 years up with it, not better than, not way less than. But this Arizona team, especially the way they handled Houston on Saturday with no Koa Pete and Burries was sick. Like they just kept him at arm's length the whole game in Houston. Nobody does that.
I agree. They're that good. And a shout, I hate saying shout out.
84 a game for that offense in conference.
And they play a different style of basketball. They drag you down into the mud. Like
Tommy's a defensive guy. Like it's unbelievable.
What about he was at McLennan last night recruiting.
Was he? Tommy Lloyd was.
And dude, that makes sense. There was a kid from UAB, this guy Evan Chapman. He went to McLennan, and he had 22 points in the first half in the game I was calling Sunday. Like they pump out good players, dude, at McLennan.
Yeah.
So he was there.
Yeah, and that's not even their best sport.
Yeah, what's their best sport?
Baseball is where they're really churning them out. Jay Buhner,
the boys on the Brazos.
Yeah, Bosky.
All right.
Yeah,
that's it. We'll see you tomorrow, Cam. Cam, you'll put up the Jay Wright interview, right?
Cam will put up the Jay Wright interview. The internet seems to be intact today.
I'll get some stuff out of it.
Perfect. I got some notes on it, so I can get you some timestamps for stuff if you want.
Oh, you're the best. Thanks so much, Cameron. And thank you to Chris Visser. Let's not forget, Chris Visser's, like I have Jay's number, but I didn't want to ask him to do that. Chris Visser sees the forest through the trees. He sees the cat in the tree, actually. He knows that will be good, and he made it happen. And that's why Chris is the best goddamn producer in America, and we're lucky to have him. Cam Stewart, close second. Garrett, you're right there. If I saw you more, I'm telling you, you probably would pass Cam. Wouldn't take much. The Pete Sousa Show presented by Savachix. We will see you tomorrow.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me, and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. NALGENE.com.
Our professionals are not only experts in managing urgent concerns, but also in providing top-notch preventative health care. We're proud to connect pet owners to a vast network of licensed veterinary professionals, ready to address any immediate concerns. Book your first appointment today.
Sports.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.